I am very glad to host today a professor from India, Makarand Paranjape. Welcome, first of all, to Israel.
Thank you. Shalom. Namaste.
And you have been in the past the director of the Institute for Advanced Research in India and also professor of literature. First of all, the big event which happened just recently, the election of Trump. What's your first impression? And I know you have been in the US during the campaign, during the elections.
Yes. First of all, I want to tell you I'm very glad to be in Israel. This is my first visit, and today is my 9th day in Israel. And on every day, I'm learning something new, and I'm also getting new ideas and inspiration. So I'm very happy to be here, and the organization that has facilitated my visit is called Sharaka, and we are a part of a bigger Indian group which has come to India, and we want to explore the friendship between Israel and India. So it's called Israel-India Friendship, or Maitri. And my partner in this is Yeshaya Rosamon, who works with Sharaka, and I think he's an India expert, an Israeli who knows a lot about India. So I'm very happy to be here, happy to be on your very famous podcast. Congratulations for running
Thank you.
such a well-watched and well-liked podcast. Now, let me start by addressing the victory of Donald Trump. Now, this is his second term. He's the 47th President of America. He was also the 45th. And in the interregnum, we had a shift, a tilt of the United States to the left. And not only to the left, but in a sense to the woke left. The borders were thrown open to illegal immigrants, and US lost prestige in Afghanistan. They left in a hurry. The economy had its own problems. Inflation was high, and generally the prestige of America in the world went down. Internally, the DEI, that is diversity, equity, inclusion, Black Lives Matter, all these movements became a way to, I would say, to end the idea of US meritocracy. Now, what Trump did, Trump changed all that. So I think that in the entire history of the United States, Trump's return to power is a historic event of the magnitude, only history will tell us, but of a huge magnitude. I don't want to compare it with Washington or Lincoln or Theodore Roosevelt or Franklin Delano Roosevelt, but it is certainly a watershed moment. And I followed the elections very closely, and I think that Trump's America First, Make America Great, and a tilt to the conservatives is also a very important message for the Middle East, because to Hamas and on the other side in Europe, in the Ukraine-Russia conflict, I think Trump's election has a big impact on geopolitics and on economics and on internal security and situation of politics, the political situation in America.
How do you think it would impact the political situation in India?
Well, in India, again, our government is also right of center. It is a conservative government, and it is also a Hindu nationalist government. And many Trump supporters and members of the Trump administration, for the first time in the history of the United States, are Indian Americans and Hindus. I can mention Tulsi Gabbard. I can mention the Second Lady, J.D. Vance's wife. Though she's not in the administration, she has a lot of influence. I can mention the new FBI director, Kash Patel, the Treasury Secretary, not the Treasury, but the Health Secretary, Dr. Murthy. So I think Indian Americans are much more important to the United States now than before, and also Hindu Americans, because the earlier administration was tilting towards Islam quite a lot, and they were very soft on Islamic radicalism even inside the United States, which had an implication not only in the Middle East, in Israel, but also in India. I think Trump is going to be very tough, and he has taken a position, an unequivocal position, against extremism and radical Islam.
The issue of radical Islam, it's still the main topic in India, or it's already a thing of the past?
No, it's one of the main topics, and it won't go away because our major threat externally is Pakistan. And Pakistan has been using proxy actors, non-state actors, what it calls non-state, but they're very closely aligned with the state. Some of them are extremist mullahs, some of them are people with radical Islamist ideology like the Arab Brotherhood or the Salafis or the Wahhabis or the ISIS or the Taliban. So they're all a cluster of jihadist ideologues, and it goes way back to Jamaat-e-Islami of Maulana Maududi, which became a very important part of the Pakistan movement. See, the Pakistan movement started with educated Muslims in Aligarh, combining with the landed and feudal classes who didn't want to lose their wealth and power because the Congress was a socialist, they wanted to reform. But later on, after Ziaul Haq, that movement was superseded by the radicals who went back to the Jamaat and the ideology of radical Islam. And now, as you know, in Bangladesh also, the coup that has taken place, the student movement has been controlled at the back by the radical Islamists. So the threat of radical Islam in the Indian subcontinent is very high, and also a little bit within India. Within India, they are indoctrinating younger minds and people. They use unemployment and discontent, social discontent. They preach through some mosques. And we had a very big problem in Kashmir because of this militancy.
Kashmir is historically known problem, but generally in India today, what is the percentage of the Islam population?
Very high, more than 200 million people. The percentage may be 12%, some say it's higher than 12, some say it's 15%. Some even go to the extent of saying it's almost 20%.
So it's a substantial minority.
Very big minority, and in certain areas, in Kerala, they're very big, almost 35% in Kerala. So that can swing the votes. In Kashmir, they're in a majority. And in Assam, they're a sizable level. And in Bengal also, they're more than 20%. So the Muslim population is always a factor. But they're not all radicals. In fact, most of them, I would say, are not radicals. Only a small portion. And that's why our situation is not, I would say, as intractable, as difficult as the Middle East, because we've had a history of Hindu-Muslim coexistence for hundreds of years, and not always has it been violent.
You know, historically wise, India has always been playing this very unique, I would say, and strange geopolitical game between the different superpowers. And just recently, during the Biden administration, we saw India going closer to the Russia, or what in Russia it's called the New South. Yeah, it's kind of alternative power to the West. What currently do you think would happen, you know, assuming that Trump is what now would happen, that Trump is the president, how it would affect that?
Yes, I want to make my own position clear. I'm in favor of a stronger relationship between India and the West and America. And I'll tell you why in a moment. But historically, India has not been close to America. It's been closer to the Soviet Union because our first prime minister was a socialist, was a Fabian socialist. And in our opinion, in the opinion of many right of center thinkers, he made a very big mistake by aligning with the communists. Soviet Union comes later. Earlier, Nehru thought he could make a very strong leftist alliance in Asia with China. And China attacked India. In 1962, we had a war. China invaded India, and a lot of communists within India supported China. So we had what we call the fifth column. And then India woke up. The leftists in India, some of them woke up. But till today, there are people who consider China as the fatherland, and they are loyal to China. Even today, the communists. So many of the nationalists in India do not trust the communists in India. Okay, so that's step one. Step two, after China attacked us, India moved close to the Soviet Union. And the reason for that is Nehru's daughter, Indira Gandhi, was installed as the Prime Minister of India with Russian support.
And she was very popular in the Soviet Union.
That popularity,
I remember as a kid,
that's a part of the larger propaganda, and KGB was...
all those Indian leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru and Indira Gandhi, they were part of the pantheon.
Absolutely.
All these holy leaders.
Absolutely, because we admired the Soviet Union and we copied you for the 5-year plans. We had a centralized form of economic development, what we call the economy of scale, and the license quota permit Raj. So it was all top down. Of course, India became very poor. We had what people used to laughingly call the Hindu rate of growth, which was 2%. And we had only 2 cars, and the whole story. And that changed in liberalization. We gave up that path, but we are still close to the Soviet Union because a lot of
the Russian Federation.
The reason I mentioned Soviet Union is in the Cold War, we were on the Soviet side. But prior to that, what I want to say is that Nehru first tried with China, failed, and then he said, let's do the non-aligned movement. So you had Gamal Nasser in Egypt, you had Joseph Tito in Yugoslavia, you had Nehru, and you had the Indonesian leaders Sukarno and Suharto and these people. So there was a Bandung conference, they tried to do non-aligned. In my view, it didn't work very well. So behind the scenes you had these alliances. And one very important thing, when China attacked India, Nehru wrote to Kennedy, this was a secret letter, that please help us. So we always had some cooperation with America. Now, after the fall of the Soviet Union, India-Russia relations remain strong, partly because of defense ties, and now more recently because of oil. We get cheap oil from Russia. Despite the sanctions, we don't follow the sanctions. We get cheaper oil, we pay in rupees. And your Russian foreign minister was complaining, Lavrov was complaining that we don't know what to do with the rupees. So our relationship with Russia will not go down completely. But I feel India needs to be closer to the West to get technology, and also because our interests are aligned. Now, the important thing as I see it is that after Biden created a war with Russia for no reason, in my view. He could have found a way to solve it, but we can go into it deeply. We don't have the time, but the military-industrial complex was involved in trying to escalate the tensions and etc., etc. But I think Trump wants to end this war, and I think that Russia will move slightly closer to Europe and America after this. And I think that is not bad for India, and that's why I feel that India has a natural relationship with America. Both are democracies, very large democracies. And very importantly, what I mentioned in the beginning, Indians are playing a large role in America. The Indian diaspora, like the Jewish diaspora in America, it's a parallel. So for America to be anti-India is not easy now, because Indians are very important in the Silicon Valley. They are the chief of IBM, Microsoft, Meta, Google. Google has an Indian chief, and so Indians play a very important role in many high-tech industries and banking.
That's undoubtedly also in Israel high-tech industry. I worked for many years, and I know I have even many friends. Of course, I worked with, and there are many of them from India.
So it's a natural alliance.
It's natural alliance,
and in this natural alliance, Israel has a very important role to play. So one of my own missions is to make a stronger Indo-Israeli relationship, and I can tell you the reasons for this, but maybe you have some ideas also.
Yeah, sure. So when we are talking about Israel and India, historically we had very good ties, economically wise, as you said, high-tech, and not only the high-tech, also the weapons. The Israel military complex traditionally was working with Indian military forces. It's not a secret, it's widespread information. So India usually was supporting Israel, but we would not say it was actively, uh, showing its support. It was behind the scene. It was a silent support. What do you how was the impact of the 7th of October, this brutal attack on Israel? What waves it gave in India?
Very important. I want to say that traditionally India, in the Nehru period, Indira Gandhi, right up to the last 10 years, wants to show itself as a friend of Palestine and of the Arab world, partly because of the large Muslim population inside India, but also because, for socialism and Yasser Arafat, India was one of the first countries to recognize PLO and all of that. And our alliance, our partnership with Israel was more secret. But after Modi government, after Modi came to power, Narendra Modi in 2014, we came out openly. And why we did that, which is also very important, is in the Middle East, UAE, Saudi Arabia, other Arab countries were also moving towards liberalism. So India they decoupled our relationship with the Arab world and the Muslim world with our relationship with Israel. So we said we want good ties with the Arab world and with Israel. And people said, okay. So that was a big shift. But what you said, October 7th, 2023 changed a lot in India, because Narendra Modi was one of the first people, our leader, our Prime Minister, came out and condemned Hamas and condemned terrorism very, very openly and clearly, no ambiguity. Now, in India, this was like a watershed for Indians, especially for Hindus, because India had been attacked by Islamic terror a long time. And when Israel was attacked, it became an international issue. When India was attacked, it was a local issue. So we said, oh, look, the world has woken up. We are facing this for such a long time. But for the first time, the world is acknowledged. And then there were Indian youth who identified so much with Israel. They wrote to the embassy of Israel in India, said, we want to come and fight. We want to volunteer to join IDF, which is ridiculous because they're not even citizens. So the level of support for Israel was unimaginable. I've never seen it for any other country at any other time. From the time I was born to today, the support for Israel in India after October 7th was, I would say, astonishing. Unfortunately, it has come down now, partly because of the media blitz from the other side and the dead bodies from Palestine, the numbers and the photos all the time of children and neighborhoods flattened, 45,000 dead according to UN. So it's come down and now people are quiet. But I think why October 7th is very important. October 7th is very important because the world must take a combined stance to say, and that's why Trump also said that we will say no to radical Islam. We have to say no to violent ideologies. So whatever you want, you should be able to say it in a peaceful, rational way and come to the table to negotiate. So the Hamas Charter of 1988 has been exposed as being a murderous, an anti-Israeli charter, and that cannot be accepted by any of the sane parties in the world. So there's a big chunk of Indian intelligentsia, including the media, which is leftist. So when I talk to them, I say that first. They always talk about Palestinian casualties. They're saying, oh, Israelis are doing a genocide. I said, have you read the Hamas Charter? First, you start there. Let's start there, then we talk about the next. So I want to say one more important thing about October 7th, and that is linked with my trip to Israel. Before I came to Israel, and I have visited the Holocaust museums in Europe. I went to Berlin. I went to other parts. I've studied the history of not just the formation of Israel, but of the Jews. And I had a lot of sympathy, for the victims of the Holocaust. But only when I came to Israel, and not only because I went to the Holocaust Museum, the Yad Vashem, and other places, but I got a much better understanding of how this nation was created. And I began to understand that the Holocaust, at least to me, is not just a tragedy that affects the Jews. It is a tragedy of humanity, because you can't do this to other human beings. You can't be, I can't say I'm a human being and I can still do it. So that is the message that India wants to give to Hamas, that what you did, it's not a matter of a fight between you and Israel or radical Islam and Jews. No, you can't do this to other human beings. If you want to be a human being, this is not allowed. This is not the level of barbarism. So my point is that Israel, only after I came to Israel, I began to understand that the existence of Israel is not just about an Arab-Israel conflict or occupation, neo-colonialism, old history, Judea, Palestinians versus Israelis, Arabs versus Jews. No. The existence of Israel is a symbol of a certain kind of nation and the formation of a state. It's a symbol for all of humanity. Therefore, if I believe that Hindus and Muslims must coexist, or Americans and Russians must coexist, and North Korea and South Korea must coexist, and China and Taiwan must coexist, Buddhists and communists must coexist, Africans, Houthis, Tutsis, whoever, in any conflict zone in the world, if you believe that the two sides must coexist, then Israel must exist. You get my logic?
Yeah.
There is a place for the existence of Israel in the story of humanity. And therefore, it's only after I've come to Israel that I begin to see that whether it's the framework of the Abraham Accord, which is a religious framework, or some other secular framework, or a combination of the two frameworks, we must agree that even our enemies must have the right to coexist. You cannot say exterminate them because they're my enemies. No. In fact, as a Hindu, I would say even chickens and pigs and cows and other animals we eat, they have a right to coexist. So even if you do chicken farming, please don't eat all the chickens, Let some chickens roam around, let some cattle roam around, because the earth belongs to everyone. And the idea to exterminate something that either I can dominate or use, and especially a human being, is not acceptable to me.
It's interesting for me, assuming that it is the first time you're visiting Israel, and you probably had imagined in your mind how Israel would look like. So what is this reality versus the imagination you had?
So I must say that what I have seen is much better than what I had imagined. And I have seen a very high level of efficiency.
You can speak openly.
No, I must tell you.
We accept criticism as well.
That is a wonderful thing too.
On my channel. So
no, I like that. I like that very much. And I want to tell my Indian friends, especially in the right wing, that you must also accept criticism. In Israel, people are of different opinion, but they are free to talk and criticize. Because I believe we must learn from one another through criticism. But in India now we've become ultra sensitive. So I called it thin-skinned nationalism. So I have written in my articles and books, nationalism should not be thick-skinned. Thick-skinned means I kill anybody, I don't care. Like sometimes China, whether in Tibet or with the Uyghurs, they destroy, they do whatever. And no matter how much you shout in the international forum, they say we don't.
No one cares.
No one cares. That's thick-skinned. And thin-skinned is, I say something about my own elected leaders and say, oh, you are unpatriotic, you are not nationalists, you don't like India. I said, no, I love India, but I can criticize because I have elected you. You are my representative. If you do wrong, especially as an intellectual, my duty is to talk truth to power. So I like that in Israel. Everyone talks openly. They are not afraid of criticism. In Israel, I think it's a society of discussion and debate. I like that. So I did not imagine it would be so much. I have many Jewish friends and they're always arguing and sometimes they shout also. So I said, why are you shouting? Then I realized it's just a style. But in India, if you start shouting, that means you are not talking. anymore. You just leave, and I don't like that. Of course, I don't like shouting. I'm a soft-spoken person, but I like a vibrant debate, and I like that about Israel. But I find that the society is very well organized. Things are very well organized and very, very efficient. There's a high degree of premium to competence. So if you are good at something, immediately your services are requisitioned and you're appreciated, you get value. And it's not a society where people are pushing others down. If you want to contribute, it's not that, okay, I have a podcast, I'm going to push you down saying, oh, Alex is my competitor. No. So I like that about Israel. I went to many places. Tel Aviv is a fantastic city. It's very modern.
Just an example, we are currently using the studio of our friend Tamir Dortal.
Thank you, Tamir. Thank you.
This is the Israel way of how we just
I love it.
Work with each other.
I love it. I like that. So you disagree where you disagree, you cooperate on important things, high level of efficiency, technological integration, modern city like Tel Aviv, traditional city like Jerusalem. I love Jerusalem, and I'm fortunate to live with Rabbi Danbury in his home inside the old city for 2 nights. And it's so clean. Our old cities are very dirty still, though our Prime Minister and others have tried to clean up. I love that about Israel. And I went to the settlements. I find people are raising families there. And I find that the men, I must tell you this, women are very strong and men are very kind. I find the men very kind. Even if he has a big gun, when you talk to him and how he put his hand on his child, how he carries his child, I observe everything. I find the men to be very good-hearted, very soft. Okay, so that's wonderful. I didn't know this, I didn't expect it. But I want to tell you some other great things I found here. I went to the Knesset. I talked to Amit. We talked to Amit Alevi. I find some of them are very strong. They're very strategically smart. They protect Israel. And for me, that is the biggest thing to learn. That all the Israelis that I met, most of them, even very liberal ones, they want to protect their country, they do national service, they serve in the army. And when the attack of October 7th happened, a lot of people left whatever they were doing. They were reservists, they went there, even people who were not reservists, ex-army colonels, generals, they just took their weapons and went straight to the Nova side, they went to the kibbutz nearby. I thought that was astonishing. I've met hostages who were released. I've met hostage survivors, people who lost dear ones, and it was astonishing how they did not have hatred in their heart, even for their captors. I met Arab Israelis. So what I found here was much, much more impressive than what I expected. But the one thing that I found the most important for India is everyone owns up to the state of Israel. Everyone says, this is my land, this is my country, and if I have to defend it, I will do it.
Nice hearing it from someone who is coming from outside, from India. Actually, I have never been to India so far.
You're very welcome. Please come.
Yeah, I should do it. I would like to go back to this world geopolitical situation. And Trump now is the president, and we see Trump, his administration, and Elon Musk trying to, I would say in the Iranian terms, export the revolution. Yes. They're trying to influence on the other countries, even on the United Kingdom, and to
Germany.
Tell them, change the prime minister,
Germany also?
It's unprecedented, yeah? They interfere. How do you think the world would change? May it indeed influence, or may it also create problems?
No, I feel this is not real. It is more pressure tactics. And in a way, I welcome it. I'll tell you why. Earlier, America was interfering on the ground, with spies, intelligence, and actual intervention with troops. Now it is virtual. It is going through social media, and it is going by trying to influence sections of other countries. I think it's more democratic, frankly. I think it is less harmful than actually having army bases, spying on other people, trying to control them, or have political assassinations. All this has happened in the past. You know that. So, see, Trump is slightly unpredictable, but his interests are clear. It's America first, and he wants to ensure that the dollar is strong, that American influence does not decline, and yet there is a continuity in American foreign policy. They don't want body bags. Trump doesn't like wars, and Biden withdrew troops. So America doesn't want to fight, which means who is going to fight now? Somebody has to maintain the global order. That's why Israel and India are going to be important in the times to come. And when it comes to Musk,
but it's a dangerous role of boots on the ground. It's not an
it's not
preferable.
nice.
Not
it's not
always
preferable,
nice to
but
be.
you have to. I'll tell you why. I was telling other friends today that in the Persian Gulf, now they call it the Arab Gulf or whatever, or the Israeli Gulf, now you're changing the names, I don't mind. But it's still the Indian Ocean, and we are going to stick to that. It's the only ocean named after a country.
For me, I like the classical names. I don't like when people, if it's called Persian, let it be Persian, and doesn't matter if the geopolitical situation changes.
So you don't like American Gulf of America, Gulf of Mexico for you. I don't mind. My point is, I don't want the Indian Ocean name to be changed because it's very, very old. But here's the point. The point I'm making is India, in a very subtle way, is already helping to police this part of the world. We have protected many ships against the Houthis and the pirates, Somali pirates and Houthis. So India is doing it, but subtly. Now we have to do it openly. And I must say that the Indian fighting forces are very good, because we are one of the few countries which has seen action in all terrains and at altitude, ground, everywhere. So I'm saying India has the capability to rise up to the occasion. We are the most.
The Indian military is one of the strongest, I think.
Well, we need technological upgradation, but our men, our fighting men, are the excellent. So I'm saying India is the most populous country in the world, 1.5 billion. We are the fifth largest economy. We are a good brain power country. We are a democracy. We have a deep culture.
The largest democracy.
Largest democracy and an older civilization, very old. So I feel we need a place in the Security Council. We need a better role in the world. And we will have to be a part of a rule-based global order. We may even call it the post-American global order. But it can't be a bipolar order. It's not only China and America. It will have to be multipolar, the world order. And I think Israel has a very important role to play, because I believe that Israel is creating the new Middle East. The new Middle East has not been created in the past by an American president or by Henry Kissinger or whoever. I think the new Middle East is being created by Bibi Netanyahu. That's what I feel. Many people don't like him in this country, and I won't go into the politics. It's not my job, but I'm only an observer, and I feel that Israel is playing a critical role in creating the new Middle East, and I believe India will also have to play a critical role in creating the new Asia, America, whatever, both economic and political alliance of the democracies.
If I'm looking on the past of our two countries, and of course India has more history, than Israel. Not historically, but in the 18th, 17th century, for a few hundred years, and also longer history with the UK rule. But if I'm trying to think about Sykes-Picot agreements and the United Kingdom coming to the Middle East, the main reason for them to take control of the Palestine and the Middle East was to secure the road to the India. How funny it seems, but that was the main reason why they decided to keep Palestine. And maybe if that would not happen, we would not have now the state of Israel.
Yes.
But you don't think that we have the common problems which we have in India and in Israel is also due to this colonial rule of Great Britain? And when I'm looking on the Middle East map, in many aspects they use the experience which they had in India to divide India, to rule India for a long time. and the same tactics they tried to impose in the Middle East, in fact.
I agree with you. I think that in recent times, India and Israel have shared two forms of colonialism. One is the British colonialism, and in India we had, prior to the British, we had small pockets of Portuguese colonialism. And also in India we had 1,000 years we might say, but at least 700, 800 years of Islamic colonialism.
I think Goa was belonging to Portugal
Goa.
till 60s, right?
Well, that only Goa was a small enclave, but Portuguese, Vasco da Gama came to India in 1498, and the next expedition from Portugal, Cabral, they discovered Brazil. So India is a part of a larger colonial project of the Western powers, and Britain lost its 13 colonies in America. George Washington defeated Cornwallis, and Cornwallis became the Governor General of India in 1790s.
All connected.
Totally connected. Now, my point is that neither in India, nor in Israel, nor in America, nor in England really, people do not understand this big connection. They always think in a small way. But India has had links with the Roman Empire. India has had links with Greeks. India has links with the Persian Empire. And I want to tell you, going back to your earlier question, this trip was very important for me because I realized how fortunate we are in India. We have been living in our land continuously for 4,000 years, whereas you had to go and come, and it was a very tragic history, of diaspora and return. But luckily for India, and Indians, both ethnically through our DNA, we can map the Indian gene, but also culturally have been a continuous civilization for 4,000-5,000 years.
And also you're 1.5 billion people, and we are a small nation of 15 million. That's maybe because of that. If we would stay, maybe we would be large as India.
Yes. And certainly you have many children. In India we don't have that many children now.
We are currently facing a new industrial revolution, and India is very involved on the software side of the business, and in many high-tech companies we have Indian personnel in United States, in Israel, I think everywhere. And on the production side we have less. I mean, iPhones are not produced in India.
No, they are now.
They're starting.
Quite a lot.
Yes, now they're starting.
Almost 20%. They moved the production from China to India.
Cars, the same. You have some car production in India. I'm not saying you don't have. And Land Rover, Range Rover belong to Tata. That's clear. But still, most of the cars which the expansion we see from China and not from India. So, first of all, why is that? And do you think could it change?
Yes. So
could it become the production hub of the world like China now?
I think it's very difficult, even if we want to. I would like to. I must give credit to China. I mean, China and India are neighbors, two great civilizations, and we've been in good relations for thousands of years. It's only recently, after China became communist, and they rejected their past, because when Chiang Kai-shek went to Taiwan, Formosa, his most precious possessions were the Indian artifacts and the books from India. So China used to regard India as its elder brother, and Buddhism went from India to China. So we don't have a historical rivalry or a historical fight or conflict with China. And even today, we want good relations with China. They are our neighbors. But it looks very difficult because we find that China wants to dominate and bully us and wants to make India a tributary of China, which was never the case historically and is not acceptable to Indians. But China has certain advantages. I mean, for one, because it's a state-controlled capitalism, they don't have labor laws, they don't have unions, and they can produce, they can undermine competition. Everything is controlled. It's a state-created and controlled capitalism, which gives them impossible advantages over us. And they had a head start. Their economy is 5 times our economy. But I believe that we can really help and rise through the service sector. We are the best service sector in the world, and you'll be surprised that many of the caregivers in Israel are from India. In the hospice, elderly care, the nurses. So India can be the caregiver of the world. Now that doesn't mean we should not have manufacturing. We will have high-tech manufacturing, I feel, in India a lot.
But what
Chips
I'm saying,
also.
if I would like to establish a production,
You can, easily.
manufacturing.
Easily.
In India, for me, it seems, I'm not saying easier, but it's a more democratic environment.
Yes.
It's you have something, you can go to the court.
Yes.
You can
yes,
believe that court more or less
Yes.
would be
Yes.
will work as it should. In China,
You don't know.
I'm not sure. So
Same with Russia.
Yeah, same
Nobody
with Russia.
wants to do business in
Yeah,
Russia.
how you can establish now production in Russia if tomorrow someone can take it from you and
Yes.
you can go to court to anyone, it would not help you.
Yes.
In
so,
India, it's not the case.
No. So that's why we have
This
many.
is a big advantage.
We have many multinationals in India, many of them, most of the leading multinationals. In fact, in the tech business, the back end, all the back end work of the big banks, Bank of America, Citibank, and Chase, JP Morgan Chase Bank, the back end software hub is India. SAP, German company, Microsoft, Google, all of them, Apple, Amazon, the Amazon backend is in India. So the tech industry finds a very safe place in India. And more is happening. AI work is happening, automation in cars. But in addition to that, what I'm trying to say is India also needs to move forward in reducing the bureaucracy, the red tape, the hurdles, the licenses required. And there are a lot of people working on this in India. The number of permissions and compliances, transparency, tax laws. Now, there's a very famous case of Vodafone, which was slapped the rules change, and retrospective taxation is a big problem. So when the government changes, you can't change the law. Suppose you are the power right now, you make a deal with me, I'm a foreign company, then someone else comes to power and says, oh, we reject this and now you owe us $1 billion in tax. That's a bad signal for global business. And that's why partly Trump wants to impose tariffs on India, because India has tariffs on American goods. So we have to learn to be more transparent and open up to the free market better. At the same time, there's protectionism in America, there's protectionism in other parts of the world. So India has to be very smart. We have to negotiate the new world in a very interesting way. But with Israel, I think we can scale up the cooperation. I met some entrepreneurs. Their manufacturing is in India, and they go to India very often. And there's a range. There are people who are making textiles and shawls in India. They're selling in Israel and in Europe. There are people who are doing agri-business appliances and applications in India, cold storage, farming and all. And they are making money by investing in India. I've also met people who have pulled out of India. They worked there for 10 years as businessmen, and now they said, no, it's too difficult. The environment is not business friendly, and they have got out of India.
From what aspect it's not?
Well, for them, they were not able to, get their permissions on time. They lost money for the delays.
So it's a bureaucracy.
Bureaucracy and also corruption. Whenever they wanted something, somebody would come and ask for money. And after a while, they were not able to deal with this, and they were not being profitable. And it was cheaper. Your labor is cheap, but the other things are getting to be expensive. Bad traffic, bad infrastructure. So these are things we must take care of. But can India become a replacement for China? I'm not sure, but it can be an addition. And in some areas, yes, 100%. High tech, high investment, and low, bureaucracy areas. Chip making, now we are opening up our doors. AI, we are opening up our doors. Defense, opening up doors. We are making rifles in India. We are making drones in India. So in these areas, yes. And our Prime Minister has also created a special city in his own home state near Ahmedabad, near the Gandhinagar. It's called Gift City. So it's like a small enclave where you can come and register a company, and you can deal with the rest of India. You can keep your money in dollars or shekels or whatever currency. You don't have to deal with Indian bureaucracy. He's setting up a separate
economic zone.
Yes, it's even more than that. It's like a city in India which is not in India. It's an international city. I wanted to very quickly go back to your earlier question about, you asked about the colonialism and the history. I just wanted to say that India and Israel have a history of dealing with Western imperialism, British imperialism, but also with Islamic imperialism. The Ottomans ruled this part, then the Arabs. But India had Islamic imperialism, which was not recognized as colonialism or imperialism, and the history was whitewashed. And in India, we don't learn about it because we want to have peaceful relations with our Muslim citizens. But my approach is different. I want the truth to come out. I want people to learn of how violent, how destructive, how traumatic the Islamic rule in India was. How they took over land, how they converted people, how there was mass killing to the point of genocide, slavery, and we must have our own Holocaust museum, the Hindu Holocaust. So these are things that Indians, which were hesitating to do, they were hesitating to do these things.
It's easier to criticize the British rule than what was before that.
So we learn from Israel to be truthful, to remember, but not to hate, and to have peaceful, and how to document our history, the trauma. Now we know about one or two temples, and they're always being portrayed in a bad light that, Hindus took over, destroyed a mosque. Thousands of Hindu temples were destroyed by Muslims. That is not talked about. Thousands of mosques in India are built upon temples. One mosque was destroyed and a temple was built, and the whole world is looking at that. So we want to be able to tell our own story in an honest and truthful way. And we want our Muslim brothers and sisters and citizens, as well as people in other Muslim countries, to understand this, and also to say, whatever happened in the past is something we don't agree with today. And at the same time, I want my Hindu friends, my Hindu colleagues, and also the Hindutva, the Hindu nationalists and their parties and their workers, not to become hating, Muslims. I don't want an anti-Muslim rhetoric in India constantly being ratcheted up for election and other purposes, because it creates social disharmony. I want more harmony in India. And you can only do it, I would think we must learn to do it in a systematic way, in a peaceful way, through knowledge and not only through polemics.
Professor Makarand Paranjape, thank you very much. It was a big pleasure to meet you in Israel.
Thank you.
Hopefully not the last time. And maybe one day I will also be in India and I meet you.
Marhaba, you're most welcome. Please come to India. We love to have visitors from Israel. Many young Israelis, after serving in the military, they come to India.
Yeah.
And we welcome them. They blend very well. And there are places like Goa and in Himachal where you have more Israelis than Indians in those villages. So you're very welcome, and I think you'll enjoy your visit when you come.
Thank you very much. Guys, don't forget, like, subscribe, and share this excellent conversation. I am very modest.
Thank you. Thank you.